the image of that God. He's taking a direct shot at the empire. I mean, he's also recalling that story we talked about earlier, right, where we are made in the image of God. And Jesus shows us what it is to be human.
So he's reaching back and he's picking up this fundamentally Jewish idea about being created in the image of God. And he's now applying it to Jesus in light of the fact that the image of Caesar is all over the place.
That's right. And it's not a weird thing to do. I mean, it makes perfect sense to reach back, I guess that might be this way, to reach back into Israel's story, to come up with the language that challenges empire. Because if you think of Israel's story, what parts of it happened under empire? I mean, I know you don't read the Old Testament, but if you did, do you know anything about the history of the Old Testament?
If I recall it correctly, there's nothing in the Old Testament that isn't written in the context of empire in one sort or another.
That's right. I mean, Israel under Egypt is under empire. Solomon under
He's an
Solomon.
empire himself.
Israel becomes an empire under Solomon. Then there's Assyria, Babylon, Persia.
The Greeks right at the end of it before
Jesus,
the Romans.
the Gospels is all written under. The whole book is written under empire, in the shadow of empire, actually.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to think about how we live under empire, how did the midwives live under Pharaoh? How did Daniel live in Babylon? How did Isaiah live in exile? How do all these biblical characters live in the face of empire? Israel's story gives us those clues. And so, in Colossians, Paul's speaking to people living under empire, and he's reaching deep back into that story and saying, you people of Colossae, you image God. Jesus shows you what it is to image God. And the empire, Caesar, does not image God. That's not where you look. And then he says that Jesus is the firstborn of all creation. I mean, that language of firstborn is really, the emperor was the firstborn of his father, who became a god when he died, right? All the Caesars became, I mean, a couple of them became gods before they died, or said they had, or something. But the firstborn was really important. Well, here Jesus is the firstborn of all creation, and everything is made for Jesus. You know, I heard this fabulous prayer. I'm trying to remember who prayed it. He prayed about, I don't know, all kinds of bugs and creatures and Brussels sprouts, which personally I don't like, but I mean, all these things being created through and for Jesus, including all the work that we do. All our work and our culture and our sports and our play. And what that means is, for Paul to say all these things are created through and for Jesus means they're not created for Caesar. They're not for Caesar's enjoyment. He had nothing to do with them coming into being. Jesus is at the heart of all our creation.
Okay, I'm with you here, and I can see how there's something counter-imperial about this language of image and firstborn, especially because of how ubiquitous the image of Caesar was everywhere. But when you're sounding like you're going to get almost political here. And when he talks about, things visible and invisible, and he says thrones, dominions, rulers, and powers, I always took those to refer to, I'd heard astral deities and sort of some spiritual kinds of forces. Surely that's not political.
Well, what do you think? You've got Christians in Rome. Well, no, they're not in Rome, are they? They're in Colossae.
Right.
They'd be in the letter to the Romans if they were in Rome. But, okay, they're in Colossae.
I understand why Sox has a Bible study on Romans coming up, too.
Really?
Yeah, we should check that out. Maybe we'll have a leader.
Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. Anyway, thrones. You live in Colossae under the Roman Empire. When somebody says that all things, including thrones, were created by Jesus, who do you think they're going to think about? Do you think they're going to think about some astral deity? They're going to think about the throne. They're going to think about Caesar, who sits on that throne. They're going to think about Caesar's dominion over the whole of the known world. They're going to think about Caesar, who is the ruler, and his power that he ruthlessly wields. Thrones, dominions, rulers, powers, This is political language. Of course it is.
So Paul is saying that these thrones, dominions, rulers, and powers are subject to Christ and not to Caesar. Caesar is subject to Christ?
Yes.
Holy smokes, that sounds like pretty hot stuff.
Well, it does. It does.
I mean, in terms of sitting in a community, I'm still worrying about Onesimus. We'll leave him aside for a second. But sitting in a community, that this sounds subversive, it sounds treasonous, but then he goes on, and what's this stuff? He's the head of the... He didn't change his tack, really. He moves from, if I accept your reading, from this political kind of thing to talking then about the more religious. He's the head of the body, which is the church.
But let's see, where is that? That's verse 18, right? Yeah, he's the head of the body, the church. Now, the word that he uses there in Greek is the word ekklesia, which we translate church. But the word ekklesia in Greek means the body politic, the Greek city-state, the men who were called out to rule this. They were all men back then, who to rule the body politic. And the language of the body was political language. That was the language that was used about Caesar. Caesar was the head of the body politic. In him, the body, the empire, held together. And so, excuse me. And so, when Paul is saying he is the head of the body, the church.
Some water that you like.
Yeah. You know, I'm not used to talking as much. We need a leader really for this stuff.
I think it was supposed to be Mark Brock, but I don't know where he is. So you're talking about the body, that Caesar is the head of the body, so that then he's the head of state, he's the head of the empire, he's the head of the body politic. So so now Jesus is saying Paul is saying that Jesus is the head of the body, not Caesar. Okay, things are getting even hotter now. But then he didn't just replace Caesar, he replaces the empire.
That's right.
With us. The church replaces the empire.
The church is now the body politic.
Well, I hope they didn't have any spies in the room when this was being read.
Well, it could have been scary, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they check people at the door. I don't know. But yeah, and then you get this firstborn language. Boy, got a throat problem here. Then he's firstborn, not to be deified after he's dead, but he's firstborn from the dead.
Holy
He comes
smokes.
back from the dead.
Right.
As somebody else.
Right.
So, not as somebody else, but Jesus.
And that's the thing. This is all about Jesus Christ, and the way it ends, this section it's all about the cross. That what he's accomplished here in replacing Caesar, somehow he accomplishes this on the cross.
That's right. That's right. It all happens on the cross.
But that makes me think of how the cross functioned in the empire. I mean, it says he made peace through the blood of the cross, but the empire proclaimed its own peace, the Pax Romana. It maintained peace. And if I understand it correctly, the way in which the empire maintained peace was exactly through the blood of the cross. You put the subversives and the terrorists, no worrying about 42 days holding them. You slap them up on a cross in good public sight to scare the crap out of everybody else, so that they're not going to want to be subversive. So Rome makes peace by the blood of the cross. Now Paul says Jesus makes peace by the blood of the cross, but it's a totally different approach to the cross. Rome makes peace by putting people on crosses, by imposing violence on others. Jesus makes peace by being put on a cross and receiving the violence of the empire.
That's right. So Jesus bears that violence till it exhausts him, rather than inflicting that violence on other people.
Yeah, and then in 2:15, I mean, I have glanced through all of Colossians.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I was just kind of shy.
Just in small little bits, though, probably, right? Not in one reading or anything.
I might have read it all once.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And in 2:15,